Welcome to the Heartification Podcast, where I interview people on how art has affected their lives and what it means to them. Art has a very special place in my life. It not only makes me feel happy, but it allows me to make others feel special. This podcast is all about how art has made an impact on others' lives, for all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of life. You can find more about this podcast guest in my show notes. Without further ado, let's welcome my next guest. He is an entrepreneur, content creator, and speaker. Please welcome my next guest, Stuart Brittlestar Reynolds.
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. So the first question I always ask is, how do you define art?
That's a really good question. And I defer to a definition of art that was made up by a guy named Brian Eno. And Brian Eno is a musician and a producer and a bit of a weird guy, but a fun guy. And he defined art as, and I'm paraphrasing here, he defined art as doing something that no one else can be bothered doing. And he doesn't say it as politely as that. He said it's a bit more rude than that. But the idea being that if you're creating something, it might not have an immediate purpose, or it might not have a tangible purpose that's evident right away. It's not like you're building necessarily a chair, even though I think a chair could be a piece of art. But it's like painting or creating something or making music or writing, and it's like you don't even know what the purpose is of it yet, but it'll make itself evident later. So I think it's doing something that no one else could be bothered doing that has a purpose that no one's quite thought of yet.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And like my definition is like it's an expression of the soul and an expression of what you're feeling. And you may not know what it's going to turn out to be. Or just, for example, painting, and then you see, oh, this is the emotions that came through when I was painting. And I found that really cool, how different pieces of art you can like identify different emotions, especially in like paintings and stuff like that.
Absolutely. It's amazing, isn't it? Like when you go to an art gallery or something and you're looking at a painting and you're like, wow, this is making me feel a certain way, and I had no idea why. Even some of the abstract paintings, you sort of look at them and go, I don't know why I'm feeling like this, but this is obviously having an effect on me. That's the cool part of art, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And another part is different people will view it a different way and have a different perspective on it, which
Absolutely.
is a really cool aspect as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's just great. I mean, it's got so much purpose. I think it's very important for us to keep creativity and art as a priority in society, because it serves a purpose that we might not even be aware of it serving, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely. And what art forms are you exposed to?
Well, I mean, lots and lots and lots of art forms I'm exposed to. I mean, obviously, everything from, we have like a few original pieces of art, which like paintings and stuff like that, in our home. And then of course I have kind of a wide description of what art would be. So it includes anything. It includes photos. It includes books. It includes pieces of music. I mean, I'm surrounded by music here in this room right now, and it's like that's all art to me as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. And as you were saying, there's so many different things that are actually art. Like when I was younger and I would think of the word art, painting and sculpting and music would be the first three things that would come to my mind. But as I actually got deeper and actually thought about it, anything can be an art. This computer that I'm looking at it is an art. Someone designed it. A staircase, or even like a home, is a piece of art. Someone put their creativity into that object.
Absolutely. I think you're totally right. I think, as you mentioned, like the design of a house or something, like architecture and just design in general, there's that artistic aspect to it that something just sort of it'll feel better if it's done this way, or it looks better to someone if it's done this way. And it's sometimes really subjective, meaning it'll differ from person to person, as you said. But I think that it's everywhere. Like it's in everything. And I even love, like art happenings are great as well. There's been lots of different types of ones that I've been able to enjoy, which is fantastic. Right from, there's been a singing troupe, like an operatic troupe that do guerrilla, like sort of, GUERI gorilla, where they'll be walking around downtown and then they'll just sort of break into song, and it seems like someone's pushing a pram or something with a baby, but then they start singing, and then someone across the street starts singing as well. And it just creates kind of a neat atmosphere, and you're sort of thinking, as well as being a performance, which you can appreciate, it's also a bit of art because it's making you think, oh, this is unusual, but I'm enjoying it. And you're now suddenly experiencing everything around you differently, which is also another cool aspect of art, is that it can affect how other things are being perceived by you as well.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And, I've seen videos of that where, people are just walking around and suddenly they are bursting out and doing a dance. And it was really cool. I mean, I'd love for that to just happening, just walking downtown or something. Suddenly there's this beautiful performance out of nowhere.
I think if it happened all the time, it wouldn't be that great, maybe. But if it's every now and then.
Yeah. And how do you use creativity while making your videos?
I think, for my process of making videos, it's kind of a bit of therapy for me in a sense, in that I'm using the creative aspect and deciding how to film something, or what words to say, or how something should look, or how what music choice I'll have in the background. And I do all those creative choices to kind of serve the purpose for me at that time, and to better sell the message, like to make the message clearer to people who are watching the video, and to make sure that it's connecting with people and that it's going to give off the right vibe, basically. So if someone's watching a video of mine, like the music choice to me is really important, because it has to either be, it has to fit the message so that you sort of watch it, as well as the words. The music can help unite the messaging in total, and it can make the message clearer to people, because it's like, well, I can hear these words, and now there's this type of music, and together it's now making that message even stronger, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing how, even words and music can affect someone's perspective on like a video, for example. And like I saw this quote somewhere. It was like, when you're happy, you pay attention to the beat of the song, but when you're
Right.
sad, you pay attention to the words.
Right. Yeah, I've never actually thought of it that way, and it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very true. It's very, very true. It's sort of, you're right. I mean, I know that there's a friend of mine who's a very successful songwriter, and he maintains that if you want to write a happy, upbeat song, it doesn't matter what the words are. They could be anything. Whereas if you write a slower, sort of sadder song, the words really matter. You can't just sort of go around saying, puppies wear raincoats in December or something. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. But if it's upbeat, puppies wear raincoats in December, it's like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. That sounds fast. That sounds happy. That's good.
Yeah, you feel like, upbeat and can dance to it. Who cares what the words are?
Exactly.
And how important do you think creativity is when making videos for companies?
I think it's super important. I think that the most valuable thing we have to offer each other is our time, because everybody's time is finite. Everyone's time here on the planet is only for so long. So when you're saying to someone, hey, give me 2 minutes or 3 minutes of your time, or even 30 seconds of your time, or 6 seconds of your time, you're still asking for a lot. So the exchange has to be that if they decide to give you their time, you've got to make it worthwhile. And you make it worthwhile by either making them smile, by making them think, by making them cry or laugh or whatever, but they've got to get something out of it, so that they can go, okay, yeah, it was worth trading in, 1 minute and 20 seconds of my time. The last thing you want is if you're a company, is to be making a commercial that's 60 seconds long or something. And, the last thing you want is someone on their deathbed going, oh, if I only had those 60 seconds back, if I only hadn't watched that advertisement for shoes, that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also important to be, different from the crowd. So people are like, ooh, that seems interesting. It catches their attention, other than some other, like, let's say some 60-minute ad or 60-second ad for shoes.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be like, oh, yeah, whatever, another ad, skip ad.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially for me, because I do a lot of branded content, which is essentially making commercials. To me, it's like you try to do it like the Super Bowl ads in the States, in the US, where people are excited to watch those commercials because they're unusual and they're really creative, and they offer a lot in return for your attention. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, no matter if it doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar Super Bowl commercial. It can be a no budget, commercial or video for your company on Twitter or something. And it's still really important to sort of make sure you're giving people something that's valuable for their time, in exchange for their time.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And you have a tagline, entertain first, sell second. Can you explain to me what that means?
Sure, that kind of goes back into the same thing where you're saying to someone, if I've got, if I'm trying to sell like this remote or something, and I'm saying, okay, well, I want you to buy this remote. If I just show up on your feed, your social media feed, whether it be, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and the first thing goes, hey, buy this remote, and that's it. And you're like, well, that's not entertaining. That's not the point. Like, who cares? But if I can create a story, or I can create a joke or something that's based around this remote, then I've at least made you laugh or think or whatever. And even if you have no interest in buying a remote, but if I finish it off with, I make you laugh or think or something, and then say, there's a remote. This remote's key to this story. Then that makes you go, oh, well, then maybe I'd like to buy that remote. That'd be really great. So that's always kind of the idea for me, is that you have to entertain first, make people laugh, cry, think, whatever, and then sell second by just saying, I hope you enjoyed that. You don't have to do anything, but I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did enjoy that, by the way, we're selling these remotes, that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's also connected with making cool and unique videos. You want to catch their attention by entertaining them and making them feel something and connect with the video. And then you can, say, oh, here, buy this remote or something like that.
Exactly. I think there's so much noise. There's never been, it's maybe, I think as a exceptionally old person like I am, I think I'm very aware of the fact that, when I was in my teens, there was no web, there was no social media, and it was the idea that you could get a phone call. Well, today my wife and I were driving in the car, and our eldest son, doesn't live in the same city as us, he FaceTimed us, so he's video chatting with us. And I said to my wife afterwards, like, this is amazing that he can just like show up on his face and you can talk to him while we're driving somewhere. That's amazing. And so the speed of which that information is traveling now, and the amount of things that are trying to vie for your attention constantly, whether it be your soul showing up on your phone or your computer or on television or on the radio or wherever, and everything is vying for your attention. So I think as someone who's creating something that also wants someone's attention, you have to really be aware of the fact that you have to stand out a little bit. You have to offer something specific to people. You have to offer something that is going to be of use to them, whether it just be for entertainment's sake, laughing, crying, or whatever, making them think or whatever. Or a big part of what I think social media content creation is about, and what makes good content creation on social media, is making sure the content can be used by the viewer as something. Meaning, if I say something about my videos, some sort of point of view about some issue, then maybe that person can take that and go, yeah, that's how I feel, and then share that. And they can use that piece of content that I've created. So it's gone from entertaining to like, now it's useful. It's like practical, and it's utility almost, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And I've noticed that you've partnered with different brands. Is there an agreement as to the creative direction for the videos that you make for them?
There can be. So a lot of brands are really great that we've worked with, and that they'll say to me, we have this campaign coming up. So for example, I don't know, Father's Day, and it's coming up, and we'd like you to do something for it. Here's our campaign for Father's Day. The company would tell me that they're going to, well, for example, it's like 2 years ago, I did one for Progressive Insurance in America, and they had made this cologne that was like a joke cologne, but everything was based around that. And they said, just make something up, as long as you focus it around the cologne, that'll tie into our branding. So sometimes they're like that, but generally they're pretty loose, and they'll sort of say, we just want you to mention this, this, this. So mention those things and do it any way you want, within reason. And within reason means, don't swear, and you don't try to make a dirty joke out of it. Don't make fun of the product. Don't make fun of the brand. But apart from that, they're pretty loose. The hardest one, it wasn't really hard, but the most stringent one we've worked with, stringent brand we worked with, is Disney. And Disney had about 6 to 7 departments that every time I had to write an idea down, I'm going to do a video about this, I'd have to write it all out. I have to send it off to Disney, and then it would go through 6 to 7 departments, including legal, branding, character, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So Disney was interesting because they had character as one of the departments, which just meant that they would go through my script and make sure that I wasn't portraying any of the Disney characters at all. So one of my ideas when my first time working with them, I said, well, my wife will be a princess. And they wrote back and they said, no, she won't. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, she's not a princess. She's not Cinderella. She's not so, she went through all the princesses. She's not any of those people. So she can't be a princess. There are no other princesses in the world of Disney. And they were probably the most stringent to work with, but even they were great. They were just kind of like, just don't be characters and don't promise people things you can't deliver on, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, and I mean, I would think like for Disney ads, it would be kind of fun for at least kids to watch like a character saying, come to Disney and you can meet me in this park or something like that.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, the closest I got to doing that is I got to dress essentially like Jack Sparrow and go through a car wash with like standing through the top of a sunroof of a car, going through a car wash, and they didn't even use it, so it's just never been seen.
That must have been fun.
It was wet and it was fun. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would want to do that, but I don't think my parents would let me.
Yeah, you don't do that to the family car, just not yet.
No, it's probably gonna get all ruined and everything, so it's okay. And art can be therapeutic and it can help people through some difficult situations. So has art ever helped you through a difficult situation?
Absolutely. I think this past year, specifically with the pandemic, me being able to create the videos that I've been able to create has been kind of like therapy for me, in that I've been able to express how I feel through these videos and try to do it in an entertaining fashion, but I can get it all out. I can sort of sit down and write. I did a video called "I'm Tired of the Pandemic," and it wasn't a funny video. It was fairly serious. But I'd woken up. I'd been so stressed out about the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, and worried about my family and people getting vaccines and stuff like that. And I woke up on a Sunday morning and I was like, I was just so angry. I was like, gosh, I'm really, really angry. And so I started writing scripts. I was like, I'm gonna make a video. And so I started to write scripts. And my first script was like super angry, like really, really angry, where I was, the first line was, if I was in charge of the pandemic, all of you morons would die. And I was like, well, that seems heavy. Maybe I shouldn't do that. It seems a little heavy. So I thought, well, okay, move on to the next idea. And I got down and I wrote 5 different scripts that morning. And the 5th one is the one that I filmed, and it's been seen over 1 million times, which is great. But I sort of worked my way through that creative process from going from super, super angry to realizing, well, I'm angry because I'm so tired. So I'm not actually angry at anyone specifically. I'm just super tired. I got tired of being on my guard and all that kind of stuff. And that's an amazing process. I mean, I think that's great. It was really good for me to know that I could use that as a way to vent and an outlet for how I'm feeling. But also at the same time, when I first started doing this, we went to a big meetup where there's a bunch of content creators in Yonge and Dundas Square, and Shawn Mendes was there, was one of them as well. There's like 2,000 or 3,000 people there. And I'd never been to like that kind of thing before as a creator. And we walked across the street, and a woman who was maybe in her late 50s ran over to me and gave me a hug. And I was like, who is this crazy woman? This is insane. Why is she hugging me? And she said, I just want to thank you because we've been watching your videos. We've been going through a really hard time with my family, and your videos have made us laugh together. And I was like, oh, well, this is amazing. So the therapeutic qualities in art in general are massive, like absolutely massive. And I mean, they're not, if you step on a rusty nail, you should still get a tetanus shot. But at the same time, once you've got your tetanus shot and you're feeling terrible, you can look at some art and you can maybe feel a little bit better. So it's really, really powerful stuff. And I think I'm just glad there is art. Very glad.
Yeah, me too. And as we're saying, like art is all around us, and we're surrounded by it every day. And there's different art forms that help people through difficult situations. For someone it might be painting. For you, it might be writing scripts and making videos. For someone else, maybe dancing. It's amazing to see how everyone has a different outlet that they go to when they're feeling anxious or mad, or they have all that emotion built up inside them that they just need to let it all go.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for people to realize that you don't need to be, good, and I'm air quoting that, good at something to do it. If you want to try painting, paint. If you want to draw, draw. If you want to make music, go for it. Write books, write poems, doesn't matter. You can scribble on a paper, it doesn't matter. I think just the act of taking what's in your head or your heart and physically getting it out of your body somehow is really good for you, and it's really powerful. And I think it can make you have a better understanding of who you are, or what you think about something, or how you feel about a certain situation. And it also helps you get some perspective. You can kind of take what's going on in your head and you got to put it on a piece of paper or on a computer or on your phone or wherever, and you can realize, okay, that's how I'm feeling, and it now exists outside of my head, and that lets me get a better perspective, and maybe I can deal with it better that way.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. And are you attracted to any particular artist?
Do you mean like have a crush on them, or not, or just you mean like sort of like I like them?
You like them?
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean lots of different artists in general. Um, in different mediums too. I mean, there's lots of musicians who I'm a big fan of. There's lots of other people who make comedy videos who I really really like. There's an old show called SCTV, which is what I grew up on, and I'm a big fan of SCTV, so Second City Television. And there's amazing artists in general who I love. There's an artist here in where we live in Stratford named Claire Scott, who's a phenomenal artist and does amazing work. I'm a fan of hers. And yeah, there's a photographer named Terry Manzo does amazing photographs. So there's lots. I mean, there's lots, and it's I'm kind of always blown away by people's creativity, and again, it's not always like they have to be the best at something. It just has to be like it's great. We have an original small painting as you walk towards our guest bathroom in the main floor, and it's by an artist named Teddy Payne. And Teddy Payne is I think he's maybe about, well, maybe I'm gonna say he's mid 80s now, 85 or something. I'm probably overstating. I don't know. He seems old, but style is really simple, and it's very just like a little couple of little lines and little streetscapes and stuff like that. But it's great. I love it. It's one of my favorite pieces, and that's again goes back to that important thing where you don't have to be good at any of this stuff. You just have to do it and put more of yourself into it, and that's when it gets great.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. Just letting that all out and just putting what you're feeling on the canvas, and it can
Hmm.
turn out to be something so beautiful.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I support that.
Yeah, and I was taught, like I think a few months ago, I interviewed Carlos Delgado, and he's
Mhm.
an artist in Toronto, and he sells his art for like $10,000, and he was saying when he first, I think, moved to Toronto, he wasn't selling his art yet, but he just so much anger built up inside him because he wasn't selling anything and
Mhm.
not getting any money. So he just took his paintbrush and his paints and he was just like slapping it onto the canvas, and then just started dripping. And then the next day he comes back and he sees the drips, and he can kind of connect the dots, and it creates like this face. So he takes his
Amazing.
paintbrush and he does his paints, connects the dots, and it turned out amazing. And I don't know how, I forget how much he sold it for, but now he's selling amazing paintings for $10,000, which is, I find,
It's
amazing. And that
phenomenal.
amazing piece that just came from his emotion of him just slapping paint on the canvas and connecting these dots.
I think it's one of the fun things about being creative and sort of saying I'm going to have some creative time, is you can't always force it. But at the same time, you have to kind of learn to kind of just let go a little bit and just be like, okay, well, this idea I have, whatever it happens to be, writing or music or art or whatever, you make, it seems kind of stupid, but I'm just going to go with it. And sometimes it's the stuff that you just kind of go with that ends up being really, really great. You go, okay. And even if it's not with the stuff, even if it's not the stuff you end up using, you can only get to the good stuff if you go through that stuff. So you have to kind of go through that process to get to the good idea or to get to the piece that you're really happy with. You can't skip over that process of being creative and just letting it all out and just sort of trying stuff and smacking your paintbrush against the canvas. You just have to go through that to go, oh, because he, as you said, like Carlos would maybe had never discovered that style of painting had he not been so angry. Obviously, he couldn't just sort of go from feeling okay to just doing that other stuff. You had to go through that whole process to get to it. And that's the fun stuff. If you can kind of enjoy that journey and go, I don't know where this is going to go, but maybe it's going to go somewhere great.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And are you attracted to any particular art form?
I mean, yes. I mean, music is massive for me. Music is, if I don't listen to music, I get a little cranky. And I'm also like, I love hearing new music in different styles and genres. And to kind of, they're not always my favorite, but I like sort of like, I like listening to new stuff. Oh, I haven't thought of doing that before. I've never heard that combination before or whatever. That's really great. But yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of, I'm in awe of a lot of different types of art forms but I think music probably sticks out the most for me. And then writing after that. Someone who could write a really good turn of phrase, that's pretty great. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And my Heartification project is all about helping those with disabilities and illnesses and helping the community. So how do you give back to the community?
Well, what I try to do is I try to use the platform I've been lucky enough to build up, meaning like I have a bunch of people who follow me. So those, people who follow me, I think, well, what kind of good messaging can I do for that? So it lets me do, and I'm also very lucky in that I can take some of these videos that might cost, if a brand asked me to make a video, it's going to cost, tens of thousands of dollars, but I can take that same production and say to someone like, Canadian Mental Health Association and say, I want to make a video for you, and it's not going to cost you anything. I want to do that, and I'll put it out, and I'll sort of help spread the word. So I think it's important for me in the way I give back to kind of utilize the platform I have and this big megaphone that I have. So when I post something, a lot of people see it. And knowing that if I post some good messaging or if I direct people to do good things, then that's good for me as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And how would you like people to get in touch with you?
I wouldn't. No, I'm just kidding. You can find me anywhere. If you go any social media platform and look for Brittlestar, and if you see this lovely face, you'll know that you're on the right account.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It was tons of fun to talk.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Remember, if you want to find out more about this guest, please go to my show notes where I have all the links needed. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my podcast series and help me by sharing it, leaving a rating, and a comment. I hope you join me on my next podcast. Bye for now.